Well, I know I say this a lot, but I just have to mention it again. I just love this process of life and how when I no longer told everyone which reading they had to share and we opened up to reflections, how perfectly they align with the ideas that David and I have for the day. Guess you can't go wrong anyway, since God is all that is, right? One of the most important to me tenets of this wonderful, magnificent teaching called Science of Mind, as shared by Ernest Holmes in the textbook, is the whole purpose of Science of Mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with the material world, which appears imperfect. Let me add, at times. So to reconcile the apparent separation with the spiritual world and the material or physical world, one of the things that we are here to do. If, when we are suffering with challenging experiences, we imagine, as we just did in meditation, this spiritual perfection, we can know that within us lies that which has never been harmed, hurt, betrayed, deceived, or ill. And focusing our attention on the idea of our spiritual perfection will often decrease our suffering, at least mentally. I know there have been times when I've had to have some kind of a shot, which I thought was painful, and I thought, well, I'm just going to give all my attention over to God and just let it be. And there have been some times where I've been actually able to stay steeped in that, not think about what was going on in the physical, and truly, it's over, and I felt nothing. Now, I'm not saying that always has happened, but like Wayne said, I'm a work in progress. I came up with this idea, be ye not moved by appearances, but by the reality and perfection of life. Our talk title this morning is Seeing Beyond Appearances. Life has what appears to be its ups and downs, its highs and lows, and in our humanity we experience the roller coaster ride. And always we are blessed with the capacity of mind to see beyond appearances. There is a true story about what is known as the Berkeley Pit that runs parallel to demonstrating how each of our lives are experienced, as well as demonstrates the vital task of reconciling our ability to see beyond appearances. As we share the story this morning, look for comparative events in your own life. It won't be an exact event, but comparative events in your own life. Times when you felt like everything was progressing and flowing right along like a well-oiled machine, and times that it didn't. Times that life feels productive, effortless, and in tune with the perfect flow of spirit are what I'm going to call accomplished times. One way that we meet accomplishment is seeing beyond appearances. Seeing beyond appearances so confidently, so surely, that we reflect inspiration from the Most High. So, what is the Berkeley Pit? Well, it is a copper mine that is located in Butte, Montana. Oh, my button pushing is not working. Mark, will you push a button for me and see if yours, it does, so I guess I have to say it instead of just click. Oh, or David will push the other buttons to make the buttons work so I can push the buttons. This copper mine in Butte, Montana was first established in 1864, and they discovered copper in the mine in the 1900s. And when they discovered copper, it transformed Butte from a sleepy little old country town to a bustling boom town. And its production was at its height in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. We can all relate to this, right? We have those highs where everything's going really smoothly and we're clicking right along. At that time, Butte was responsible for over a third of the copper that was produced in the United States and used in the United States. Life appeared to be happy, productive, and fully alive. And as I said, each one of us can relate to that feeling of living in joy, exhilaration, living what we might call the good times.
Well, after the end of the World War II, the demand of copper dropped drastically and the mining company of Butte began to lose money. The company executives got together and decided they had to come up with a better, cheaper, faster, more efficient way of getting to the copper to get it out of the hill they'd been mining for so many years. They came up with a genius idea. Rather than painstakingly digging shafts into the hill like they've been doing for years, they decided to blow the top off the mountain and come from the top down and dig a big copper pit into the mountain. That's exactly what they did, and their strategy actually worked. So in terms of seeing beyond appearances, it appeared the mine was empty, but there was still a mountain of copper left that they just couldn't see. When things appeared to be coming to an end, they came up with a new idea and new strategies to turn things around and create more wealth. We can all, of course, do the same thing, just look at things a little bit differently. We can come up with new ideas and new strategies to see beyond appearances, to see what appears beyond what appears to be imperfect. When you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. When it appears you're getting deeper and deeper, change your perspective and look up.
Yes, we all have the ability to see beyond appearances. The question might be, do we? So what are some of the ways? We can imagine new ideas that are relative to the situations that we find ourselves in. Sometimes we might need to just take a break. We might want to sit and ponder, as my husband loves to do. We might want to just sit in the silence, meditation, visioning, brainstorming, or we might even need to walk away, at least for a while, maybe permanently. It's a choice, it's a decision. The miners were able to keep their doors open until 1982, when they were forced into bankruptcy. The ideas that we think and the actions that we take in our lives are important. They do matter. Whether we choose to pause or to walk away or to sit and come up with a new idea or to ask a neighbor or read a book, whatever we do, it matters. And they have an effect on this thing called my life. So on the way out of town, when the miners were leaving town, the company shut off the pumps that they had been using for years and years to keep the water from collecting at the bottom of the pit. So of course, slowly over the next years, the pit began to rise. The waters began to rise in the pit, higher and higher and higher. It got fuller and fuller until it had 40 billion gallons of water in it. It became the Berkeley Pit became known as one of the largest lakes in the United States. Now, when I was reading the story, and about that point, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going on this RV camping trip. Maybe it's developed into a tourist site, and there's an RV park there, and we could be right on the lake that has all this magnificent history to it. And I thought, wow, how exciting. But that isn't what happened.
Well, there's a unique quirk to the geology in Butte, Montana region, because its ground is full of pyrite. It's a mineral better known to you and me as fool's gold. Fool's gold. Now, in interest of seeing beyond appearances, fool's gold sounds awesome and fun and exciting, but remember, it's not real gold. And it turns out that when air, water, and pyrite get together, they produce sulfuric acid. So this ginormous lake became a ginormous vat of sulfuric acid. And then in turn, this acid hastened the rate at which the heavy metals and the copper ore left in the walls of the pit leached into the water. So it became a toxic brew of acid and heavy metals. But it was beautiful. To see a picture of the lake, it looks like a regular red-tinged lake. But those who have seen it say that the best way to describe it is technicolor. Because if you look at it from one angle, it looks red. If you look at it from another angle, it looks green. If you look at it from another angle, it looks black. And if you look at it from another angle, it looks gray. It looked beautiful and technicolor, and yet it was toxic. And residents of Butte would soon discover it was deadly.
And our picture only looks black, but on the computer, on my computer, it's a beautiful orangey, rusty
There
red
you go.
color.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So, are you seeing the parallels in the story compared to life itself? Compared to our personal life, our material, physical life? I often think when I'm processing something, one of my go-tos for that divine perfection is the rose, a picture of a rose, because I've always loved the smell of roses. And you notice some of them don't even have a smell, but I always check it out. If I see roses, I always check it out, because the roses smell so good and they have a magnificent design. I remember when my son in art class learned how to draw each of the little petals, and I thought, wow, you could be an artist. He's not, but I wonder if he still can draw a rose. And they have brilliant colors. But even though they have all those wonderful things, they still have thorns. And we sometimes get cut on those thorns even after so many years of knowing that they're there. Yes? And also, the rose continues to bloom. It doesn't sit around and complain or die like that because of some problem it has or someone got cut with a thorn. And life is like that. It continues to share its beauty while shifting back and forth. When all along, regardless of a rose or a situation, spiritual perfection is fully present at the core of all life, because at the core of all life is God. So, we must always be looking beyond appearances for the center of all life, that is the goodness that God is. And still, one night in 1995, there was a great storm in Butte, Montana, and the storm passed right over the Berkeley Pit, just as a flock of snow geese were coming by also. And the snow geese, of course, took refuge down in the pit, thinking that they would be safe from the storm that was brewing. So when the residents of Butte woke up the next morning, they woke up to find the carcasses of 342 geese floating on the surface of the pit. The state of Montana conducted lab tests showing that the insides of the birds were lined with burns and festering sores from exposure to the high concentrations of copper, cadmium, and arsenic in the water. The Berkeley pit was a pit of death, entirely inhospitable to life. Now most of us, I know me, feel saddened by that part of the story. In fact, it touches something deep inside us that makes it relatable. And I was personally so saddened by it that I told David I was eliminating that part. It was just too tragic for me. And he said, well, you can't do that because that's what the whole point is seeing beyond appearances. So once again, in the midst of developing the message, I got to take a look at seeing beyond appearances. And I realized in my soul searching that the 342 geese had died 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And still hearing about it has an effect on us today. It taps into our old woundedness, our old sadnesses. And that is a part of our empathy and compassion playing out. And that is a good thing. It has been said that to the degree you can feel the sadness is the opposite degree to which you can feel the joy. And I remember when I first heard that, my mom said it to me once, similar words, and I thought, wow, well, I'm glad I can feel that degree of sadness because the gift in it is the degree of joy that we're able to feel, that childlike joy. It is an opportunity for us to grow beyond our grief and see beyond appearances to the greater good. It has also been said that we must be able to hold our grief in one hand while simultaneously holding our growing and gratitude in the other. We must not only in the happening of the geese, but in our own life, see beyond appearances.
So I think it's kind of valuable at this point in the story is to ask the question, what possible good could come out of a pit of death? The Berkeley pit's reputation was well known to the area residents, and that is why after several years, after the 1995 geese incident, when somebody walked into a biology department in the nearby University of Montana with a slimy, algae-covered stick, the biologists there were surprised to learn that it had been pulled from the pit of death. Somehow, some way, life had found a way. The researchers got curious. They had written off the pit for years because they believed it wasn't possible for anything to live in it. They decided to scrounge around a bit to see what else might be, what they might find in the pit. After a year of searching, they found a black, blobby glob floating around in the water. It turned out to be a kind of yeast that had most remarkably created itself within the water. It was absorbing the heavy metals from the water around it, and it was acting like a sponge, soaking them in. That's not at all exciting in and of itself, but because for years scientists and engineers have been using bacteria and other microorganisms to filter heavy metals from contaminated water. Usually, these bacteria filter about 10 to 15% of the heavy metals out of the water, But this black blob in this pit of death was absorbing 85 to 95% of the heavy metals in the water. Turning it around, it was purifying the water, actually. It was like a sponge soaking the toxins in and returning to the lake purified water. It would take in what was once a toxic brew and transform it into drinkable, showerable, teeth brushable water.
Wow, pretty impressive, huh? Life, God is eternal and infinite. So now we've turned our sadness into a positive. Imagine turning that deadly water into drinkable water. Obviously, the scientists were very excited about this, and so they decided to work up a profile and run it through their databases. And they were certain that yeast in this natural form must have occurred somewhere else, and someone else must have come across it. So they ran it through the databases, and it returned a hit. One hit. One single hit. In all the natural world, the yeast occurs in only one place, the digestive tracts of geese.
Oh.
Within the digestive tracts of geese lies a yeast that has the ability to outlive even the most toxic environment and can transform the toxicity into purification. As we see beyond appearances in our life to the greater good of life, we transform our own life for the better. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only transform. So, what's going on in the pit today? Well, it might be a story that you want to Google and look up because there are a lot more pieces than in one message. However, I will tell you this. Andrea and Dawn Steerley are chemists at the University of Montana, and they are studying the fungi from the bottom of the pit. They believe, and studies thus far have shown, that there's a strong chance that the fungus from the pits could be a cure for cancer. The story of life continues, just as it does for each one of us. In those moments where we're feeling like, geez, if it doesn't get any better than this, what's the sense? In those moments, we must tackle the job of seeing beyond appearances. We all have the ability, we are created in the likeness and image of seeing beyond appearances, to use our own personal imagination, to grow ourselves to new heights, to experience new highs. We are life in motion. And as Florence Scovel Shinn said, I am not moved by appearances. Therefore, appearances move. That's a good one to keep in our thoughts, huh? And from our founder, here's a way for us to become unmoved by appearances. I cleanse the windows of my mind, that I may become a mirror reflecting inspiration from the Most High. Mark, if you'll click again, we can all share those words together as we practice seeing beyond appearances.
I cleanse the window of my mind, that my way becomes a mirror, reflecting inspiration from the Most High.
And look at that beautiful reflection picture David found of the pit. Yes?
Yes.
Cleanse the mirror, the window of our mind, so we reflect the inspiration that God is. And so it is.